Welcome to Compression, the quest to $100 million in just 1 year. Join me, your host, Logan Freeman, in this one-of-a-kind interactive podcast experience where I am on a quest to compress 3 years of achievement and production into 12 months. And no, the answer is not to just work harder. I'm bringing you not only ideas and concepts that are complete at the theoretical level, but they're also effective at the applied level. Look, guys, knowledge is not power. It is potential power. Knowledge plus massive strategic action equals power. We're talking about strategy, systems, accountability, all in real time. This is Compression.
Woo-wee! We compressing it, baby. So I got the man, the myth, the legend, Logan Freeman here. And you guys are going to get to dive into the recesses of one of the most successful people that I've met.
Oh, wow.
$100 million over the course of the last 3 years.
Yep.
Our mission is to compress that into 1 year. And you don't do that by accident. Mm-hmm. Now, over the past 3 years, Logan, when he started, no relationships, no track record, nothing that said he should be successful other than a will that I'm going to make this work. And so, Logan, there's a ton to unpack. I could go in so many different directions, but I like to start with just kind of the origin story. Mm-hmm. Where'd you grow up and what did you see as the actual path to earning the living that you wanted to live as an adult?
Well, folks probably don't know this, but the capital of Missouri is Jefferson City, little city right in the middle of Missouri. You go 2.5 hours east, you run into St. Louis, you go 3 hours west, you run into Kansas City. Hour and a half south is Springfield, and right in the middle, you got Jefferson City. I always liken Jefferson City to, when I read this book by Carol Dweck called Mindset, there's two mindsets. There's really two types of people in this world when it comes to mindset. The first being a fixed mindset. It's not necessarily a negative mindset. It's just, this is the way the world is, and this is how it's going to be. The growth mindset does not accept that. And the growth mindset says, I can be better. I can make positive change in my life. Jefferson City is more of a fixed mindset. Very great place to live, safe, affordable, nice little place. But, the real biggest, winner in Jefferson City is, whose truck is bigger, And, thankfully they haven't seen the dually, because all you would have to do is pull up and say, I got you. But, that's Jefferson City. So I grew up in Jeff City, and I knew that something was a little off in our family. I didn't know exactly what it was growing up, but I battled, and I haven't talked about this a lot on shows, but this is my own show. So, you're getting it. I battled ADD and obsessive compulsive disorder very bad. Growing up, to the point where my mom had taken me to some sort of neurologist where I went to help control my thoughts and my emotions in my head. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But, my father always was kind of a wild one. And, he liked to drink, he liked to smoke weed, and he really liked to, kind of escape life that way. And he loved us kids. He really did. But he didn't make very good decisions, which forced my mother to work 2 jobs to keep food on the table, to keep clothes on her back. I got 2 sisters, one older, one younger. My mom worked nights. My dad would be passed out by 7 or 7:30. So my older sister really kind of helped me become the young man that I am. But I watched my mom sacrifice so much growing up. Now, my mom has more of a fixed mindset, but she also has a mentality of a mother, and she loves her children. And so I watched her sacrifice so many years for us kids to make sure we had what we needed to have and not be outcasts, so to speak. Lower middle class, whatever. but we definitely did not want for anything in my life. But I had a lot of friends in my life in Jeff City that I would watch, and their family dynamics were just different. So let's fast forward. So I went up to high school. I was a big kid. I love playing basketball. I love sports. My escape from my mind, because I couldn't figure out how to manage it yet, was sports. So I played basketball, football, baseball. I started to really excel at basketball. So I played basketball my freshman year in high school. And then, I didn't play football my freshman year in high school. But I started to develop so fast that my knees started to really give me some trouble. And I developed Osgood-Slaughter, which just means, hey, you're a big kid and, running up and down the floor and jumping up and down probably isn't the best for you. So, I was battling that. I didn't get along with the coach. I had a what I'll call a mentality problem at the time. And so I stopped playing basketball and I started playing football, and I found my sport. And so I excelled all through high school. I'd work, I would work the weekends and I'd work after school in high school just to make sure I had a little extra money, and help my mom out wherever I could. Started working when I was 14 years old, by the way. I had a Roth IRA by 15. My mom had to go sign on it because they wouldn't let you open it up yourself. But I was reading Dave Ramsey at the time, and I figured that's how you got wealthy, right? Was save, save, save. Ooh, was I in for a rude awakening. So in high school, played football, did pretty well, all-stater both ways. I got picked up as as a Division II athlete, got a nice scholarship to the University of Central Missouri, went up there, got the opportunity to play my freshman year. Not a lot of freshmen get to play. So I got to step up and play in some games. Then I broke an ankle and tore an MCL in practice. So I got a red shirt. So I had to sit out the rest of the season, but I got to come back that fifth year. Through college, man, all I did was really identify as a student athlete, student first. I took my studies seriously. I was ESPN All-Academic, All-American, Dean's List every semester, all through graduate school as well. Just pure work ethic on that stuff. And that's the same thing I did on the football field. I took the same mentality that my mom had instilled in me through watching her, and started to apply it to my studies and to football. Well, one day I'm sitting there and I showed up to practice a little early because I needed to stretch out, man. I'm just a big guy. I need to get rolling, get stretching, try to get loosened up for the day, and went in and got some film watching in. And I saw the Carolina Panthers scout was there, and I said, Coach, hey, who's the Panthers, scout here to see? And they said, well, I'm glad you're here because they're here to talk to you. And I was like, what? I had no idea. I was like, get out of here. So sat down and started talking with some scouts, and that's when I realized that maybe I had the opportunity to play at the next level. And so agents started giving me a call and all of these things. So after my fifth year of football, I had graduated with my undergrad, was working on my master's. The NFL draft comes around in April or whenever it is, and I didn't get picked up. I thought I was going to get drafted in the 6th or 7th round. I didn't get picked up. But at the NFL Combine, I was 335 pounds, ran a 5 flat 40, and I benched 225 29 times. So I was one of the top centers. If you guys remember, Dallas Cowboys center Travis Frederick was a couple ahead of me. Travis had to stop playing ball because of a heart issue or some serious medical condition, but that's the same class that I was in. So I went out. I got picked up as an undrafted free agent with the Oakland Raiders. And when I showed up, Jerome, my mentality was that my stuff didn't stink. I had touched everything. It turned to gold. I was going to outwork everybody. But I came from a Division II school. Whenever I stepped on the football field, and I used my physical prowess and my playing to the whistle to get me to the level I was at. And I was bigger and stronger than a lot of the guys in Division II. When I got up there, everybody else was bigger and stronger than me, and they were playing at a level. They were playing at SEC level, man. I'm talking ball was snapped. I felt like they were across the line. I mean, it was crazy. So mentally, I was not there. Physically, I could keep up, but mentally, I was not there. And so, I beat out a few of the guys that they drafted, which I was very proud of. But ultimately, I got let go, and I got fired from that job. I got cut from that job. And that was a big mental hurdle for me to get over. I had to really rethink of, who I was as an individual, who I wanted to be, what my identity was. Well, like I said, I was 335 pounds, and to keep that weight on, I was eating 10 to 12,000 calories a day, lots of protein, just crazy amounts of food. So when I got cut, it was pretty late in the process, but I had a light bulb. I said, I didn't love that. I don't think that's for me. I'm going to go back to school, finish my master's degree, I think. So I didn't keep up the eating, but I just stayed in shape. 4 weeks later, or 3 or 4 weeks later, maybe, I had already lost 40 pounds, so 10 pounds a week, and the San Francisco 49ers call. I'm in Las Vegas with my best friend at the time and his family we went out to vacations all the time. They had a bunch of vacation rentals. It wasn't like a crazy blowout or anything like that. We were just out there enjoying one of the lakes out there where Hoover Dam is, I think, was all that stuff. So long story short, the 49ers call, I answer the phone, say, "Hey, Logan, our center just went down. You're on our board. We need to fly you out so you can try out. There's only really a week or two left before the last cuts. What do you weigh right now? Are you in shape?" I said, "I appreciate the opportunity. I'm in great shape. I've been running. I'm staying in shape." They're like, "Awesome, man. What do you weigh? Where are you at? Let's fly you in right now. Let's go. We got to get you here the next day." I said, "I'm in Las Vegas. I'm not that far." And they said, "That's fantastic." They said, "What do you weigh?" And I kept delaying that call, but that was the moment. I said, "I'm done." Because I probably could have put 20, 25 pounds on in a couple of days. I don't know. Or I could have just tried to bluff them. Who knows? But they, I just said, it's time for me to move on. So I said, "Sir, I weigh 280 pounds." And they said, "Well, what happened?" I said, "I'm done playing football." That moment, I shed the identity of being an athlete, and I went back inside myself. So I went back to school to finish my master's degree. Okay, so got cut, started losing weight. I said, "Man, I've been a big guy my whole life, and I want to try to be a littler guy." So I was like, "How do I do that?" Well, eat less, move more. I was an athlete. I was in great shape. I'm 24 at the time. I'm just at the top of my game. So I end up going back to school in the summer, because I got cut in the summer. So I went back to school in the summer, but I would work all day pouring concrete, moving heavy bricks. And I go home and I put myself through an hour and a half gauntlet in 110-degree weather in Jefferson City, eating 2 packs of tuna and eggs. That's all I ate. 2 packs of tuna and eggs all day. So probably about 1,000 calories. So I went from 10,000 to 1,000, all protein. And working 8 hours and then going home and working out for an hour and a half, running, lifting heavy weights, the weights that you saw in my room up there. Actually, some of them are still up there. That weird easy bar, I don't even know where I got that thing. So that was a big mental time for me to rethink who I was. And so I went back to school. I got a job because I needed to make some money to pay for school. So I got a job at a company called MCH Strategic Data, making 265 cold calls a day. So here's my schedule. Wake up at 3:30 in the morning in Warrensburg, go to the gym, work out, eat some food, line up the podcasts and the CDs I was going to listen to for the hour drive to Sweet Springs, Missouri, down I-70, make 265 cold calls, get back in my car, drive an hour and listen to an hour more of the personal professional development, and go to school from 5 to 9 every single night for 6 months, 12 hours in the library on Saturday. Lost 120 pounds in 6 months, completely transformed my perspective on life, and started to try to become a better man. I dove back into my faith, and I started to dive into, Napoleon Hill and Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and all of these guys, the godfathers of personal and professional development. So fast forward, I'm working, going to school, losing weight. Fast forward to graduation week. And graduation week was a big week for me, because I was going to move on to my next position as a franchise consultant with Jimmy John's, the youngest franchise consultant they had ever hired. And so I landed that job, quit MCH Strategic Data, was the number 1 salesperson over there, by the way. Quit that, and then went over to Jimmy John's. Well, my dad came up to move me out of Warrensburg, my apartment, my roach-infested apartment, with no front door, by the way. We'll talk about that later. I didn't have a front door in my apartment complex. It's like $500 a month, baby. Utilities included, right on campus. So I'd go back to, I was getting back ready to move out, go back to Jeff City for a little bit to start my job. I had to drive up to Michigan, start my job. My dad came to move me out. He couldn't. My dad's 6'2", 260 pounds, hit a golf ball 300 yards, dunk a basketball, that type of guy. He couldn't make it up the stairs to get up to my apartment complex. My dad, obviously, like I said, had been battling things his whole life, but it was hard because I knew something was seriously wrong, and that was like in the end of December. By January 1, that was the day that I got the call. So the day, New Year's Day on 2014, I got the call from the hospital because I was listed as the guy that they called to say, hey, you got to get to the hospital right now. Your dad's dying. Like, he might not have long. I'm like, what happened? Like, what's going on? I just saw him 2 days ago at our Christmas. So you got to get here. He had a stroke. A stroke? What? So I'm getting to the hospital, trying to figure out what's going on. My dad is just out, man, and they unsedated him a little bit. He barely woke up to see me, and he's just scared, scared, doesn't know what's going on. And I had to be the guy to ask him, Dad, do you want to be buried here in Missouri? You want to go home to North Carolina? And that's what I got to ask my dad. So long story short, he had a bunch of procedures. He had a worse stroke, which then had future complications, and there was nothing more they could do for my dad. So they took my dad out of the hospital, a man who was on basically on pain medication to keep him alive. And they took him out, took all pain medication away, and put him in a hospice house and with a room with a TV. They said, insurance is no longer paying. You get to go over here. And my dad died alone the day that I left for Michigan. I delayed my leaving twice because I wanted to spend time with him. I said an Our Father over my dad on like a Thursday, and I drove up to Michigan. 6 hours into the drive from Missouri to Michigan, I got called from the nursing home, so my dad passed away. So in a matter of 6 months, I went from being a 335-pound offensive lineman in the NFL to losing 120 pounds, new identity, losing my father, and starting a brand new career. And so that was over 7 years ago now. So that's who I am, where I came from. That's the background story that people are going to get more insight to, I'm sure. But I wanted to at least just kind of pause there and see if there was anything you wanted to chat about in that.
So what happened that made you say, I'm done, right? I'm not playing football anymore, because it was so much of your identity for so long. And I think it was the way you thought you were going to make money when you shifted from basketball to football.
It was my gut, man. It was in my gut. It was in my heart. And it felt I didn't have the passion. And I didn't have the passion at the time. And I now know it's purpose. But at the time, I thought it was passion. And so I didn't have that fire underneath me anymore. There was no common goal that we were all working towards. It was, I'm trying to make this team to make some money, not I'm trying to make this team to win a national championship, become a better person. And that's when that fire left. And I didn't really love that anymore. And to be honest with you too, the immense pressure I was done with. It was unbelievable. Not the physical pressure, it was the mental pressure. So there's got to be a better way, man. I'm the guy that's going to be fighting to be here every single week. And I just do not have that love of this game in my mind or in my heart to continue. And I know that I am strong enough mentally and physically to go do something that's much more profitable and probably healthier for me. And so with that being said, when I was convinced myself of that, it was game over.
Okay. And so you go do the thing in Michigan, and then let's talk about Taylor and your last day in that last role.
Okay, so you want to talk about when I got fired? All right, so we go back to it. Was at Jimmy John's. Was there for 12 months or so, and rose through the ranks there at Jimmy John's and kind of went to my direct report and said, hey, what's next? He said, hey, you're the youngest one in the company. You haven't even been here a year. The next position is mine. I'm not going anywhere. You'll have to move. Strike 1, 2, and 3. I left a week later for a startup company. So I went from a largest franchise, our fastest growing franchise in the country, to a company with 3 employees. The director of sales, or the general manager, saw that I was actually going to pick up the phone and call people to drive sales to this business. He left 2 weeks later after I outsold him. So he left. And so now it's 2 people really and me. And so I helped grow this sales company, or this startup company, direct sales to some of the largest trucking and transportation companies in the country. I did that for 2.5 years. Met my wife through that process, met the best man in my wedding through that process. But at the time I said, okay, I think it's time for us to go to something more safe. And so I took my first 6-figure sales job here in Kansas City at a company back in the hospitality space, selling services and consulting. And I did that for a little bit over 12 months. It's about 15 months. I got a call, said, hey, I need you to come in at 6 a.m. the next day. Okay, great. I brought my own cardboard box. They wouldn't let me take anything. I said, just at least let me get my books. Let me take my books, because I had all my sales books there. Said, okay, you could take your books. So I took all my sales books with me. I got fired. I called my wife. Said, Taylor, I got fired. She goes, no worries. Just check your email whenever you get home. Check my email. Okay. Check my email. She started what is now Live Free Investments. And she'd started the articles of organization and the LLC to get me started for what I was going to do. And that's the day that I, started my own company, which has been over 3 years ago now. So that was, that was a very defining moment in my life as well. But it was a lot easier to go through that having the support of her.
So what did that do for you? What did that signal? Because there wasn't a lot in that exchange. It was all activity. There wasn't a whole lot of words.
Yeah. It was scary, man. It was scary. But I knew that I had set a foundation the previous 5 years of learning about business, learning about entrepreneurship, emotional agility, emotional intelligence, all of these things. And so I figured I was ready. I didn't know what I was ready for yet, but I was ready to take action and do a bunch of shotgunning and figure out what was going to stick on the wall. So for me, that moment was like the most freeing moment I've ever experienced, because no longer was I going to be a slave to anybody else. I was going to be the master of my financial and my well-being going forward. So I guess it was a scary moment, but it was also extremely freeing for me, because I didn't feel like I was, I was just, paying the man anymore.
So I know we're running up on time. The one last story that I think is super interesting is, all right, so over the course of the last 3 years, you've done $100 million, right? Let's condense the last 3 years into a minute worth of story.
Yeah. We could keep going just for a little bit, but when I started Live Free Investing, or Live Free Investments, it was Live Free Consulting. It was Live Free Investments. It was everything, because I wasn't sold. I wasn't sold on real estate alone, but I had a buddy who landed a big fish off of Bigger Pockets. He landed a $50 million fund, and his head of acquisitions just left. And so he needed a head of acquisitions, but it was 100% commission. And I wasn't sold that real estate was my thing. And so I started a sales consulting company. I've been trained on Franklin Covey sales training. I've read all of the books, felt very comfortable in delivering content, presentations, thought I had some good stuff. So I picked up Inc.'s 5,000's fastest growing company list. And I called the first 2,500 of them. And I landed 3 sales consulting clients to pay me $250 an hour. They said, well, what do you do? I said, well, whatever you need. And that was the moment that I lost as a consultant, because no longer was I a slave to one company. I was a slave to 3 clients. And maybe I was making more, but I also still had to answer to them. And I didn't know what I was doing. So I was reading books on the fly. I was putting proposals together. I was asking my wife, because she was kind of in the space. I'm doing all of these things. And all I'm doing is complaining to her about these sales consulting, clients that I have. And all I am doing is talking about real estate, about how much fun I'm having and how exciting it is, and how much success we're having. We were doing over 10 transactions. These were all single family homes at the time. We were doing 10 transactions a month with the fund. Ended up doing 80 in like 6 months. 80 transactions in like 6 months. And so at 6 months in, my wife took me for another walk and she said, "Hey, I'm really impressed with what you've been able to do. Like, good on you, man. You proved some pretty cool stuff here, but you need to focus. You need to be strategic. You need to pick one or the other, real estate or consulting, because running around in circles is really, causing you to struggle." And I was like, okay. That was the moment that I ended the consulting contracts. I finished up those projects and I went head first into real estate, doing real estate at a larger scale. We sat down with the sponsors of that fund, the people who manage that fund. They said, what did you do to aggregate all these dollars? And they said it was a syndication. Well, that was the first time I had ever heard that word. I didn't know how to spell that word. I'm like, a Cinda what? Cinda who? Is that a name? You calling it Cindy? You got Cindy over here aggregating money for you? You got a syndication? Like, what are you talking about? I said, no, it's a syndication, and we're aggregating funds utilizing, Regulation D's SEC exemption, Regulation D 506 B and C. What are you talking about? So I said, okay, well, I'm going to learn how to do that, because that's pretty cool. And so that was a year after I had really been doing single family homes. So really my first year in real estate was $12 million, man, which is a lot for a lot of people. But the last 2 years is really where the growth has come, and why I'm so confident that I can get to 100 million in 1 year. Because if we just take out the 12 million that I did the first year, you really got, 88 million the last 2 years, right? So now we're getting closer. Now we're seeing the opportunities here. And really in 2000, not this year, but last year, I didn't get started brokering deals until March. I did a ton of brokerage that year, and I represented all buyers. So I reinvented a whole space. So again, the goal is to compress those 3 years, but each one of those years I've done something a little bit different. And I've found the right avenue now to be able to get to 200 million. When I added up those volumes and saw it was 100 million, I was like, wow, that's exciting, man. And then I see what that has made our family and created from a net worth standpoint, and also building wealth, and that's in passive income, which is very exciting as well. But I said, what if, right? Got that David Goggins mentality. It's November. I start thinking about the year. I start thinking about next year in November, because if you're thinking about into December, you're too late. Let me just tell you, you're too late, because I already got you beat. Jerome's already got you beat. We already started. We got 30 days on you, man. Oh, by the way, we're up at 4. What time you get up? You up at 6? Ooh, I got 22 days on you before you got up. Anyways, the idea of what we're going to be able to accomplish here is the fact that you don't have to work harder to be able to accomplish more. You have to work in a more effective and efficient way. There's quadrants, and everybody's heard about those quadrants, about Stephen Covey's quadrants, but that's important. But what I'm trying to figure out is, in the quadrants, there's $1, there's $10, there's $1,000, and there's $10,000. And if you can play in that quadrant of 10,000, that's where people start to make oodles and goodles of money. You think Patrick Mahomes was surprised that he signed a $500 million contract? I don't think so. That boy values his time. He knows what he's worth. And he went out and got paid. Now it's up to you to do the same and for me to do the same. So I'm excited because I got the right vehicle now, and I got the right people driving that vehicle, and it's headed in the right direction. I've never been more clear in my life on where I have been. I've never been more financially, emotionally, and physically stable than I am right now. And that is what you need to be able to scale up to the next level. And so compression this year is being smart, but it's also being strategic and taking massive action. So there's different levels to this that I'm excited to talk about. But that's kind of where I'm at now, man, and what we're doing. What else do you have for me?
What's the one takeaway, Logan? It's always one takeaway. What's the one thing?
Everybody asks me why I'm different, and I'm gonna leave them with this, man. I'm gonna leave them with this. So, being a 24-year-old boy at the time, I had to write my dad's eulogy, and I was pretty introspective. I was getting there, not anywhere where I was now, but I was getting there. And I wrote my dad this poem, and I'll leave people with this, because if you want to follow somebody that thinks differently, lives differently, and acts differently, that's what you got here. And let me give you a little bit of insight into why. This is called My Dad. My dad was far from perfect, but aren't we all? My dad had my back and believed in me whenever I was about to fall. What hurts the most is that I knew who you were, but at times in your life, you were not sure. That's okay. What you taught me is your legacy, and there's nothing more in this world that means more to me. We cannot go back in time. You taught me that. Focus on the family and take care of those girls is what you said. I'll never forget those last words you spoke while you laid in that bed. So I just want to leave folks with that, Jerome. I'm excited for people to start getting an idea of who we both are. And thank you for being here.
Boy, if people aren't ready for compression, I don't know how they will be. This is about to be exciting.
I'm pumped. Hey, compressors, if something you heard struck you, made you feel a little bit uncomfortable, good. Head on over to compressionpodcast.com. And then you can also subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts at. If you feel inclined to, please leave us a review. It's obviously helpful. But instead, I'm going to call you out today. I'm going to call you out and make sure that you do your part, sharing this message by sharing it with one person that might need to hear what we talked about today. Be great. Nothing else pays.